class. How do you make you feel?
I didn't make anybody late for class. That just was funny. Look at my nice new thing. That's pretty cool. Hey.
That's mine.
Alrighty, so everybody got done with the exercise? Alrighty, so each person got an exercise. So
Oh, we can upside down.
we'll go around and we'll each read what we created. And I would say that we could do a fun thing where we pass to the left and we each read what the other person. And once we've all done this, then I've got a couple of surprises. Yeah. All right. So my exercise was to write a story that was based on a conversation between artists, including some interesting terms. So it was of an oddly shaped old man with an expression upon his face, almost like I had forgotten to throw out old food into the trash can. As I pondered this man's existence, it seemed like an eternity passed. The man continued painting, each silent brushstroke seemed to last decades. I tried to ask his name, but no words came. Where was I? Who was this entity? After gaining all of my courage, I moved forward step by step, finally peering over his shoulder. I saw his painting. It was a simple skull. Within its gaze was all the revelry and beauty of existence. And then he spoke. You're not supposed to be able to leave the canvas. I lurched forward, sweating, terrified, back into my apartment, back in my own bed. What was that? Wow, what type?
You sound like somebody got drunk and high.
Some sort of night terror.
If you just imagine instead of painting class, something just about painting. Oops, look at that.
Yeah.
Lick and stick.
All right.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
Teddy.
Alrighty, so Stacy, you want to go next? Sure.
The decade-old visitor forgot to ponder the expression of the galaxy. The author states in an excitable tone. The painter looks at the author with a quizzical come to life. Great, because I was about to deep six it in the trash can. Never feared its deployment is here, the painter laughs as she begins her work. Every once in a while taking a mental note from the author and vice versa. Within a few hours, they both are done with their work. Same time next week, of course.
Miss Helen?
Okay, when I was a child. When I was a child, a member of our animal family consisted of a rooster that behaved like a cantankerous among golden goose. I was in elementary school at the time. We would come home from school and play horseshoes and would coordinate other games, outside games. But our rooster would meet me outside every day, and I would shuffle and maneuver around him to tap me like a gooseman that hadn't had dinner. It was like he could tap into the universe to know that I was on my way home. So before I could play any games, I had to come up with a solution that would cause me that would cause him to go the other way. My dad gave me a pole, and I would tighten my hands to get a snug grip, just in case I had to defend myself. With the exception of being attacked every day, my life as a child is all fun and games.
That's amazing.
I think I did it wrong.
Yeah.
I would have cooked that bastard. Come here, barbecue.
I didn't make a true story like that. I made one up.
So you pulled a Fargo.
Oh, yeah.
Alright. Shelby?
Alright. In another universe, there was a Gosling going to elementary school. This little one loved to coordinate complex games for his friends. One of the games he shuffled glass into a basket and had his friends find the green glass shard. Another game, his friends had to find a Mongolian horseshoe in a bush of briars. One of his favorites was to have his friends tighten a rusty bolt, with the exception that they only used tools in a barrel of sand. And if they could not find the tool, they had to use their teeth. This caused him to love his games and having his friends play them. And he always kept the secret where what did I do? He kept where to get what they were looking for a secret. However, the solution to each is that the items they were looking for did not exist. Based on a true story someone else.
That's a mean little duck. And there is no tools in that bucket of sand. I'm just watching you be an idiot.
Alright, so the goal of this exercise was to force us to begin and complete while still exercising and stretching what we can do. They gave us a prompt. They gave us roughly about 10 nouns, adverbs, adjectives to utilize. I think Stacy and I had the same. Shelby and Helen had the same, and we had 4 completely different stories. So last month we did the story of the UPS driver, and we did it in parts, and nobody collaborated and it all worked together. This month we did similar prompts, and nothing is the same. So just like last time, we'll go around and we'll do positive things about anything that we may have heard, and then we'll go around and do any type of criticisms that could be developed further. So that way we can figure out what we can strengthen and at the same time figure out what we're doing better. So I'll start off on positive. Stacy, you made it seem very easy. Because I had the same writing prompt you did,
I know.
and my confusion led to this guy's confusion.
What does he mean? Give me a baby.
And so
I don't wanna do this.
it was just, I'm writing this, and oh, someone fell out of it, put it back in. So
I had that problem with my head gets on my desk.
it goes way too easy. And it's not a bad thing, it's a really good thing. It showed me something that I could have done and I wasn't even aware of. So it flowed very nicely. Actually surprised me because is that a true story?
Yes.
Oh.
He was so mean. Oh my goodness. He was scared me to death.
Like I said, that would have been barbecue. Where's the chicken? Don't worry about it.
We had 4 different writing prompts, and the one that was based on a true story I thought was going to be very, very loose. I really didn't expect anybody to actually stick to it and hold true to it. So that surprised me. And I actually owned a flock of chickens for quite a while, and I had a relatively large rooster.
Oh my goodness. What is he was possessed?
One of my little brother's worst memories is that they chased him.
Oh, horrible.
But it definitely brought back a lot of memories.
I mean, horrible.
But I mean, it was refreshing to hear it, and at the same time, I commend you on actually being able to do what I didn't think was possible. You guys are surprising me. Shelby, yours was just a lot of fun. Like the little gosling that
He's evil.
Well, he reminded me of Loki.
Right?
You know, the concept that there's a barrel full of tools, but they're buried in sand. You gotta find the tools by digging in the sand. If you don't find them, you can tighten the bolt with your teeth. And it's just the games, the fact that he keeps making these games and he keeps organizing them. It kind of makes me feel, it kind of makes me wonder, if that's how people see me from organizing events.
That's all. So I'm like, the only thing I can think of is just a chaotic goose.
But I like how fun everything was and how easily everything worked. Like I really think, if I'm not mistaken, this exercise went faster than the last one we did. So I don't know if it's the fact that there's more direction with these I laid out, or if it's just the fact that we're getting better and we're progressing.
I think also it's the fact that last week we were just like, we're doing what together? Huh?
Yeah.
I just
We're
like,
just kind of like, okay, let's go with this and we'll see where this goes.
I
I think
reckon
we're a
we'll
little bit
jump
more
in.
comfortable this month.
Yeah, that probably has a
I
lot to do
randomly
with it.
jumped in like, I don't know what I'm doing.
So that's just the first positive thoughts that popped into my head. So, Stacy.
Like I said, I would have turned that chicken into barbecue. My dad would have asked me, where's the chicken? Don't worry about it. Just like, if you don't give her to grandma, don't worry about it.
This is, I mean, it's a relatable story.
Yeah, what you went through with that chicken is kind of like what I went through with my grandma. I couldn't stand her, and at one point she beat the hell out of me because I didn't want to go to the prison to see my uncle. Or there was somebody else there that creeped me out. She wouldn't hear none of it. So when my dad got home, she beat the hell out of me. And a couple months later, she was harassing my mom, and I flat out looked at my dad. And not realizing we had mafia ties, I kind of looked at him like somebody, a mafia hit person. Listen, if you don't do something about this person, I'm gonna do something about this person, and nobody's gonna talk about it. And Dad goes, "Do you realize that we have ties with the mafia?" Huh? So in a way, you never know some things, You don't know things, and then they just have a way of revealing themselves. At least your dad gave you a tool to deal with such a But yeah, I don't think I'd be. If I would have dealt with that chicken, I think I'd be taking every chance I could to eat chicken and be like, yeah, it's your ancestor. It's your ancestor culture on this dinner plate.
Oh my goodness.
But honestly, I can see how you could thrive and grow from that because, I mean, you learn from it and stuff like that. Shelby's just reminded me of Howard the Duck. Mixed with Loki and the antics and stuff. I could see that being a backstory for a duck that gets into a lot of trouble, kind of LA Noir style. But they didn't know that they weren't there, but they figured it out one day. But it wasn't done maliciously. Maybe Glass was, because Glass is sharp. We're going through all these sharp.
I
Glass,
originally used
find
the
a green
word
one.
dangerous, but I'm like, let's change that.
Well, I mean, that was his most dangerous game. I think I'd rather sticking the rusty bolt in your mouth over someone else. Isn't that much better? I mean, you could get what they had, or you could get tetanus. So hopefully they're all up to date on their shots.
If that exists in this world.
Oh God. But that one was had a real Guardian of the Galaxy feel with the whole comical side of everything.
I need a
Made me
leg.
think of Groot. I need that leg. Really? Yeah, it'd be fun. I like John's concept of you're not supposed to be up the plane. What do you mean? I won't wake up in my bed. It would have been cool to see what happened when they woke up and stuff like that from this night terror and stuff. And I liked how, as hard as this person tried to converse with the person doing the painting, that the painter wouldn't respond. And then it's like, oh, I heard something. What are you doing down there? He was kind of surprised.
To escape.
Right. It's like, no, go back in your jail. But that was definitely different. I didn't think about going that way. And mine, I kind of just did. It's random thoughts that run through my head. My Aunt Dawn told me all the time. She goes, we talking fine on one subject, and she goes, you go way on left field, and we start talking a whole nother subject, and then you come back to this subject, and she goes, I'm still lost on this subject. And I guess that's how I wrote this, because it's like sometimes I struggle with my own self, and it's like, I need somebody to talk to let you know what's going on in my brain, just to let it out. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I kind of did what I did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes I just talk like, whatever, I'm sleeping on the desk, leave me alone. But he's just a good listener. He just lays there, except for when my mouse is on his bed, and then he pushes it off.
Michelle?
First of all, it amazes me how that, I mean, I can see the talent in each mind and how you take the same words, like John was saying, and you come up with totally different stories. And it's like the writers write, you know, I mean, it's like the writer comes out in you and you're not even conscious,
Yeah.
you know, of it bleeding on paper. You know, you just like, and then you come up with a story. I mean, each and every story is unique in its own way and it's telling a story. And the little goose, you know, I mean, the dream, and you know, it's telling, they're telling specifics in the story, but from what? From a few words.
Yeah.
You know?
He just had a sign, I'm not informed.
From a few words, and you create this picture that everybody can just enjoy, humorous and deep, and you know, and that everybody enjoy. And it amazes me just to hear each and every one of you and what comes out of these minds, you know, of ours. It's great.
Well, I like that you actually made an actual story, 'cause I wouldn't have been able to do that. I was just like, let's make something fake. Because I went straight to
In a galaxy far, far away.
somewhere else. I don't know.
There might be a universe where little goose plays tricks.
And that world, the
It
Gucci
could be an alternative song.
solve.
And then we just threw it away. They're like, nah, let's do it again. I like that. Let's try it again. And then there was like, no, stay over here. No, I don't want to stay. No. I'm gonna go over here. No.
So, criticisms. The only thing that I can say is the same thing that I said last time. I want more. The conversation between the two artists was abrupt. It was fast paced. I was listening to it, and then
It just stopped.
they stopped talking. I was like, wait. It's like I'm sitting here watching these two individuals, seeing what's about to happen, and then they stop. And I'm like, oh. Because it pulled me in too. And then the same thing with the rooster. You know, I'm following up, and I'm following the rooster as it's just chasing you. And I see you get the pole, and I'm just waiting for it, and it stops. And it's like, well, what happened?
What did you get?
It's like, I know what type of spurs those things can have. What happened? Did they become friends? And then,
Chicken get cooked.
yeah. And then the Gosling, you know, it was fun and it was fantastical. And I was just waiting, you know, what happened? Did somebody get the bolt on? Did somebody get it off? Did somebody play a trick on the goose? What happened? So with these pages, the length that we were limited to, there's only so much that we could do. But that just kind of leads me to the only criticism that I saw that, you know, I want to see more developments.
Yeah, I'm kind of at the same point where I want, what happens?
What do you want us to write a book?
Right.
These are short stories.
Yeah.
Well,
That's a rock.
they're like super short stories.
So, Stacy, do you have anything that we could improve on?
I actually want to take this home and work on this some more. Because, I mean, It is one of those things that's like, okay, the conversation did end fast, and it's like, okay, did they get it done, or did they throw it away?
Did they eat it?
I don't think they eat it. They're not weird like Shelby.
I don't know, maybe there were two goats talking about it back and forth to each other and
Goat
said,
artists.
they're like, no, it's terrible, just eat it. And don't even bother throwing it in the trash,
I'm
just
gonna
eat
eat
it.
my feelings. But no,
They got tired
I
of
just-
the Goose's tricks.
right?
The goose just been messing with them. They're like, I don't know the right thing. Goose like, what thing?
Right.
It has invisible ink. Like, comes back and I'm like, what?
But no, I agree. I'd like to see more.
Yeah, that's about how it is with me, you know, it's just,
They were quick to draw you in, and you're like, all right, you're invested now in these characters, and it's like, huh, curtain down, chill. What? No.
all good stories. All good stories, but you're just like, okay, I don't know about what happened.
I mean, at the end of every good story, regardless of how it's ended, there's always questions. What happens next? Even in Greek mythology, you know, you still, to when Odysseus returned home, reclaimed his kingdom. What happened after?
So Miss Helen, is there anything else that you could think?
Yeah, other than just want more,
Kind
want to find out what happened next. It's kind of legit.
of leaves you on a cliffhanger.
Yeah, other than that, just go deeper.
Shelby?
The goose comes alive.
Don't ask me. I'm more of a positive spirit person.
And so, that's a good point too. So the criticisms are not personal. They're not anything against anyone, and they're not technically negative. They're actually a good thing.
They help the person grow.
Yeah, it's so we can see what we can do to improve on this thing that we, so that way we can get better at what we're doing. So the number one criticism is the fact that they're all very, very brief. And that was because of the limited amount of space that the exercise gave us. But it kind of brings to the forefront a very good perspective and a very good thing to think on, in the sense that in the art community, there's been a lot of conventions that I've been at. I've talked to a lot of writers. I've talked to a lot of actual graphic artists and painters and everything like that. And the number one rule that they all kind of lean back on for anyone who's stepping into any type of artistic profession is complete. Don't worry about perfect, complete. So that's what these exercises are really meant to enforce, the fact that you started something, you created something, and you completed it. You may want to add more, you may want to extrapolate and expand on it. That's fine. That's true of every person who ever makes anything. There's always going to be something that you want to go in and add on to.
I'm drawing my duck.
I thought you were at pyro that duck. I'm like, oh god, it's a pyro.
But completing things allows you to get in the habit and the behavior of finishing what you start and following through. If it ever becomes a point where it becomes a profit generating thing, or if you ever wind up doing anything like this for a commission or anything like that, the experience of starting and finishing is going to be really important, because it's going to help you to get things done in a time where you can get things to the end result as quick as possible. And while things may not turn out the way we want them to, there's another writer that I talked with, Bob Salvatore, and he mentioned that his books, as he started writing, his characters are very iconic and like the Forgotten Realms book series and everything. The stories didn't quite go the way he wanted. It would get to a point where he would start writing a paragraph, he would start writing a section, and it was almost like he had developed the characters so well that he could almost hear them over his shoulder. I wouldn't do that. That's out of character for me. And so while the story might not have gone the way he wanted, it wound up developing, from the world that he created initially. And it wound
That's
up
one of the
expanding.
points in one of my classes that I recently took is my screenwriting class, exactly. The instructor goes, was the way the character reacted or done things true to the nature of that character?
D&D.
Yeah,
My character always screeched and screamed, didn't go into any place quiet.
Yeah.
That was her
But,
character.
he basically would tell us, try to ignore what we would think they would do and just try and get into that mindset of them and see what they would do.
Absolutely.
Put yourself in their unique set of shoes. So does anyone have anything other than the exercise that they would like to present for
Drew the goose.
So we have a graphic art representation of the little gosling.
He's got a drink like want some.
I wouldn't take anything from that thing. Might be laced with something.
I would be nervous to
That's how your person woke up with the night terror.
it could be.
The goose is the root of all problems.
He could have been one of the creatures that was playing a game with the goose and he woke up as a human.
That's the reason why the chickens kept chasing her, because chickens terrorized my goose messed with everybody.
The chicken used to be a human, the human used to be a chicken. Now there's a vicious cycle.
Oh, goodness, yes, evolve.
Alright, so, nobody has anything else to bring to the fire.
Are you sharing that?
I can.
You have
It's
something?
it's something I started with my friend. It's nowhere near complete. It's just with school and everything, it's kind of got put off to the side.
Yeah.
But I have all my notes. I just gotta organize the notes. And at the same time, I'm working on my third novel to my series, and it's like it's at the same time, because if I get stuck on one, it's like, go away. You come here. And when that one don't want to cooperate, you go away too.
Yeah. And that's actually, because I have that same type of,
But I always go back.
yeah, I have that same type of issue.
And it's most of the time, it's like,
And then
most
you'll,
of the time, it's this other character that pops in my head. Hey, I'm here, my turn, my turn.
yeah, it's almost like they show up and it's like they come to visit and it's like, okay, well, I feel like I have to write some of this now. And then you write until that kind of peters out, almost like they're going away.
Yeah,
And
so I go
then
down
you
back.
set it aside and then another one pops up and then you pull the other piece that, interprets them. And so that's kind of where exercises like these come in handy, because it'll be like, you're kind of forcing that character to sit in your mind. And if you try to force the words to come out,
It never works.
it's not going to work out well. But if you get to the habit of wrapping things up
Yeah.
at the end of a session, you could then go away from it thinking, okay, that book's complete. Technically, that's a place that it could be complete at.
Yeah.
But there's enough of a cliffhanger because I didn't answer all the things I wanted to.
Right.
That I could add
That
another
was the
couple
biggest thing that
chapters.
my friend told me. She goes, why did you end your book like that? Why?
and that's
She goes, you just left it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. She goes, you couldn't have left it in a nicer space? If I left it in a nicer space, it wouldn't be a very good cliffhanger, now would it?
So do you have an excerpt from this?
Yeah, like I said, I don't even have a title for this thing. But the premise behind the character is he's been in prison. He doesn't remember why. He doesn't remember anything about himself. I mean, his name.
Mhm.
But there's something there with him.
Yeah.
That he doesn't remember either. And he and it kind of share the body together. It's his body, but he shares it with like a symbiotic demon type thing.
Okay.
Marcus Anthony, the man lives in drug weary head once more. That voice is the one from my past. Is that my name? Contemplated in silence as the drug was slowly leaving the system, leaving his mind groggy, his thoughts hazy. He could hear voices on the other side of the door. He wasn't positive, but he was sure he wasn't supposed to be awake just yet. Yet his body and mind tell him that he has to be awake. He quietly looks around the room, being very careful not to disturb a single link of the many chains holding him in place. The dank, molded room was dark and reeked of urine, sweat, and of his own unwashed body. Despite the darkness, he could see everything in the room clearly, or the lack of anything in the room. This confused him for a minute before his mind became sharper and more focused. He could see in the dark without a problem. He can remember that now. But his focus swiftly returned to freeing himself of the infernal chains piercing his flesh with sharp barbs. He couldn't quite remember how he ended up here in this dungeon. However, he could remember there was someone important waiting for him on the outside that he had to use.
better with the machine.
He freezes as he feels something serpentine brush against the back of his leg. He tries to look behind himself, but can't, so he decides that whatever it was wasn't important. What was important was escaping and getting away from these assholes who drugged him under constant restraints and surveillance. There were always guards on the other side of the door. The only time light spilled forth into his solitary confinement was when as he felt a dull tinge of pain pass through his neck. That's when he remembered the strange tubes that were hooked up to his neck, keeping him hydrated, and he would assume providing the much needed nutrition to survive. But why? He lost his train of thought as he heard the voice again. It was strange, yet familiar to him at the same time. Marcus, get off your lazy ass and start working on those chains before the guards return. With the red priest, the voice said in a demanding, angry tone that had some sort of seductive quality to it. How, he asked. The lockpick buried in the flesh on your forearm. Marcus, so that was his name, he thinks to himself, as he does as the voice had demanded of him. He bites into his forearm, tearing out the pick. He tucks it under his tongue before silently spitting out the chunk of his own flesh. It was then that he agonized, the agonizing pain in his stomach, as if he hadn't eaten in months hit. His vision changes from black to white. A sanguine monotone filled his vision. Before he could let out a feral growl, something inside him choked his throat to prevent the sound from escaping, as well as leaving him completely paralyzed. Focus, damn it, Marcus. If you make so much as a chain link move, they'll come in and sedate us again. I don't know about you, but I want out. Slowly, like thick honey, the red fades from his vision after a sheer force of indomitable will. He regains control of his body. Thank you, he tells the voice. Thank me when we're out of this shithole, the voice growls irritably. Marcus uses his mouth to pick the first lock. Then he grabs the pick from his mouth and deftly works through the rest of the locks as the drug-induced fog fades. Sets the chains down slowly and silently. He scales the wall with ease coming to the barred windows. He uses all his strength to get the bars to bend enough for him to slip through. He drops down the window, landing silently behind a bush without stirring as much as a leaf on his descent. He slips into a shadow, staying low, crouching position as he moves shadow to shadow. He freezes in the shadow as he watches guards approaching. He held his breath as he let the guards pass. Once they pass, he grabs the one trailing behind the others by the throat and mouth before he snapped the thick man's neck with ease. He dragged the man into the shadows, removed the man's armor with swift, deft fingers, and he donned the armor with the same skill, which slightly confused him. He grabbed the man's long spear and started walking through the encampment, searching for an exit amongst the maze of tents and wagons. Slipped past the last tent after what seemed like an hour. Hastily but silently rushed to the woods. After running for several miles, he removes the armor, buries it off the game trail to hide it. He kept the sword belt with the finely balanced sword. He rushed to the closest town, where he pillaged the local laundry line for a change of clothes. Quickly changed clothes in an alley, throwing his down into the sewer. He set out to find himself a suitable horse to continue his flight from his own personal hell. He stole a horse before heading into the next town.
Huh. What a journey.
Yeah.
Like I said, this was more lighthearted than my normal dark stuff.
How did he get the key? How did the key end up being in his
A lot of
flesh?
That's something he did before he got captured.
That means
Wow.
he
Which
got
we come to
captured a
find
lot.
out.
That's amazing.
He got captured a lot.
That's amazing.
That he got captured a lot. That's what it means. Like, I didn't get captured so much. Let's just big listen to my horn. Jr.
It reminds me of
This is safekeeping.
there's
They
a
search
thing,
my
that reminds me of it reminds me of a druid that was in Byzantine, where it's kind of recanting the tale of the Roman invasion areas. And there's an individual who is like a druid that's being cast out, and he has a voice that's supposedly in his head that tells him when bad things are coming. And it's like a survival instinct that has kept him alive for this long, but at the same time, it's a negative entity, and that's why he's been cast out. And so that's kind of, what I'm envisioning with the character is that he's not entirely bad. The thing inside of him, maybe.
Stop eating people.
But at the same time, it's one of those things where it could potentially grow with him to the point that that there's always a possibility he could become too dependent on it. So, it's an interesting character arc, to say the least.
I can see how it can be, a movie like Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a non-existent tool.
So Ms. Helen, do you have anything that you would like to share?
A little short poem is I named it, poema, from different languages. Poem.
Yeah.
It has that distinctive ebb and flow, up and down like seas we roll. A mirror image of our walk, a reflective portrayal of the talk we talk. Each day has its own rhythm and rhyme as we proceed through the portal of time. We travel through valleys and over hills, experiencing highs and lows, personal chills and thrills. Somehow we land upon that mountaintop because of the company in Jesus, that solid rock. Like a flower that blooms in and out of season, as if there was no rhyme or reason. In one moment's time, we can be as dry as a desert without rain, experiencing heartaches and life-changing pain. And suddenly, the heavens open and pour more blessings than we can contain. This is why we can never give up. Someone's reading your lyrics and savoring every sip out of your life's cup. Seeing your pain and hoping you'll make it through, because that poema is none other than you.
Nice. That was inspiring, to say the least.
Definitely had a good rhythm to it.
Yeah.
It's like your writings, whatever, what the gift that you have is actually, it's a reflective image of who you are, who you're portraying,
I was thinking way too literal the whole time. I was like, okay, so a work can have this type of effect. It's like, okay, cool. So that's inspiring to do more work. And then it's like, no, you are the personification. Oh, okay, cool.
Michael.
I wasn't sure. I was like, okay, I follow this. I got it, and then it just turned on me.
And that's why people keep saying, this is what this meant when he said blue curtains, he meant he was sad.
And
I think he just meant blue curtains.
and that's a good point, because like I followed it the whole time. I was like, okay. And so there's some people that would take that and just be like, okay, so it's an actions thing. It's like it's based on you do enough actions and things balance out. And it's like, no, it could just be you and the example that you're leaving. So, artistic interpretation.
And that's something that we expect it to be read and perceived as this why, one of my classes, he said that part of the job of the author wasn't to develop and stuff. And
Well,
it's hard to do that and we don't think about it. Other times it just happens.
and that's how you make it memorable too, is because whenever you leave it enough that people can do their own interpretation, Kind of like how, I had mine, and I was like, work.
Cause you always work.
Well, yeah,
Yes,
that's my.
that's your
It's also the
portrait.
interpretation of how your
Yeah.
brain sees
That's
everything
your-
as you do it.
So that perception and allowing a kind of personal connection and giving that much room in it throughout it helps make it memorable. Because if people read something that they can't personify with and they can't relate to,
Mhm.
they're gonna put it down and skip to the next thing. It's not gonna resonate with them. It's not gonna speak to them, and they're just gonna just be standoffish to it. So having that kind of room there to where one, it makes things easier on you because you're not having to explain as much, which is a good thing because
Well, I mean, that's how it happened with the lottery, because, I mean, it can be perceived so many ways.
Yeah.
On who come in there, who the stranger was, is the main thing people are trying to figure out. And somebody goes, well, who is it? I go, well, that's up to you to figure out. I go, it could be God,
That's what I do. I look up to get that guy.
it could be the devil, it could be some other
As
entity.
you can see, when you're running green, you're going to.
depends on your perception of the situation.
Hence, and, I mean,
I drew this. That's what I did. That's it.
Shelby did her artistic interpretation.
I don't know. It's just I started out drawing a wrench, and then I went to doing a weird tree thing, and I'm like, let's add a
it's a
boat.
boat. I got the boat. It's a bad swamp tree, it's bad juju.
It looks like and the work thing's coming back out again. Looks like a tree.
It's
made
so
out of
why you
tools.
work.
I originally started out drawing a wrench, and then I'm like, that's a terrible wrench. Let's draw one though.
Like a person that got so much going on that he wants to just take a boat and get out. He just wanna go somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of like a face on there.
Cause you got lambs, there's lambs like that.
I don't know where I'm going with this, but let's go.
I mean, that's kind of like the stories that,
Yeah, that's
we made tonight too.
That's it, that's it. It's a
That's what they
story
want
in
about
the picture.
art. People are like, oh, look at the line. It means Congress. How do you get Congress out of a line? Okay.
Yeah. Everybody has their own interpretation.
Yeah.
So before we got started, I said that we were gonna have a couple announcements tonight. So one is those of you who we have actually published your books. We recently started running ad campaigns for both of them. We're running some ongoing ad campaigns through Amazon and our other locations that's online. And we're testing if the ebook version or the physical format has the best metrics. And we're going to basically just throw it out there, see what other products people pick up that kind of brings them to what you guys have created. That way we can kind of help explore that niche area. And then we can start targeting towards it.
Basically, letting people's boats come find your random tree in the middle of the water.
Exactly. And then
Trying to be their light in the darkness.
once we get those metrics, we'll then be able to see, if the paperbacks perform better, or if the digital copies perform better. What countries do they work better in? Because we have all this running on a global scale. And we started running that about a week ago, and I'm planning on giving it about 2 or 3 months running. So that way I can get some good metrics in and see what demographics all of the different works speak to. And then we'll be able to start targeting a little bit more hardcore. So that way the next pieces that you guys generate will be able to, go ahead and just go straight to those markets. Because in just about every bestseller setup, it's all about the first week or 2 weeks of performance. And so if we can find your demographics, find the people that like what you guys do, find the people that your work speaks to, and go ahead and identify them, then every time we release something, we can shoot it straight to that group, put it right in front of their eyes. That way they'll be more inclined to get it, they'll read it, they'll enjoy it, they'll review it, and that will actually gain more exposure, more press and everything like that. It'll wind up climbing in the ranks of all the registries that, books are available. And that will bring them more to the forefront That way, whenever somebody opens up the Barnes and Noble registry, they'll be able to see, oh, okay, well, this is in like the top of this area, you know, and it'll all start to kind of funnel up after a point.
Right.
So I'm running all of that stuff, and I just wanted to let you guys know, you know, what I was going with that. The other announcement that I wanted to let you guys know about, when we first started doing the open mic nights, we started discussing about doing like live streams and podcasts and stuff like that. I have set up a specific channel and some podcast stuff where I would like to organize times, like maybe once a month or, you know, once a week, whatever works for y'all schedules, to where you guys could come in, do a reading, probably not an entire book, because you don't want to do your entire book at one time, probably just like, you know, a 10 to 15 minute section of, you know, either a book or a collection of a couple poems or a couple pieces, just something to come in and do like excerpts of over time. That way people can listen on whatever their preferred podcast or YouTube or whatever. That way they can kind of get a taste for it before jumping in and getting the full books. Because even still, it'll help you to get it out there too. And it kind of gives you another audience, because as I'm learning more and more about disabilities and stuff like that, you know, my oldest daughter has a hearing impairment. I'm blind in one eye completely. So,
You ain't blind in one eye, you're colorblind, you're pretty much diabetic, you're not supposed to be standing, you shouldn't even be breathing.
So, the fact that there's also, you know, there's a lot of people that, while we write and we create written content, there are thousands, millions of individuals who can't actually consume that content. They can't enjoy it. So even if it were to speak to them, we wouldn't be able to reach those individuals with just that. So doing an audio format would help make it more available. Subsequently,
And it also helps with some people that are just too busy to pick up a book they want to.
Yeah, that's another thing too. Like people like me, whenever I'm doing work around the shop or I'm renovating or anything like that, I'll have the computer just play audiobooks while I'm working. That way I still get to read whatever I'm working on.
That's not reading, that's listening.
Yeah. I'm still consuming whatever.
Literature.
Yeah. And then the other announcement was that we had discussed streaming the open mic nights and streaming other events that we have here. So you can look at the big guy sitting in the corner, and he's actually been streaming this entire
Oh
night.
my goodness. Let me check me
I was thinking like, okay, maybe I'll just avoid those. Nope.
So any social anxiety has
Oh.
gone out the window.
Okay, well maybe it's telling me to do this too.
After the tail of the goose, I might not be able to drink
Yeah. I've been tampered with by the goose. I'm
So,
like, I sat there the whole time.
now, as for these, we did mention at one of the open mic nights that I would like to compose an anthology series of pieces that we all work on and we all build over time. I want to kind of showcase what's in our area, what we have here in Washington Parish, particularly here in Bogalusa, because there's no reason why, with the amount of talent that we have here, we can't do something, you know, similar to what New Orleans and other places does.
Right.
And so these pieces, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a living document, and I'll send a link to each of you, so that way you guys can type this up. You can either leave it as is, or you can expand on it if you want.
Are you the same link as the one before?
Yeah, yeah, you can.
Because I know it
Just
allows you
format
to,
so I can put the picture of the goose and the tree on it.
if you got a scan,
You could actually, if you're,
take a picture with your phone and upload it to Google Docs.
because I'm going to send it as a Google Docs link, and so you can click insert image and then choose from there and just take a picture. I try to keep things as user friendly as possible.
Especially with me.
I tell what people trying to learn healthcare.gov.
Last thing you want to do is work with something.
Click the button. No, No, not that one.
Are you sure it's on? Are you
That
sure
would
it's
be
plugged
me.
into the wall?
Go to healthcare.gov, healthcare.com? No. .org? Gov.
G-O-V.
Obamacare? Marketplace? Marketplace.gov? No.
Sounds like my 3D printer just finished. So.
I was just gonna say, either that or something farted really bad.
So, I'll send links to each of you and you can add these in. And, once you type these up, polish them up to where you feel comfortable with. We'll do an exercise like this each month. And over time, things will get better, we'll improve, we'll grow, and we'll each kind of build our own anthology throughout the year. And then we'll be able to kind of release something once we get to a point where we all feel that we have enough pieces that we feel confident in. Just because we want to kind of showcase the.
Because I was thinking about doing a short story thing about, anyway, even though my short stories, short stories are about 30 or 50 pages.
I have that same problem.
This is a short story.
Yeah,
Exactly.
this is the short
This is
story.
the definition of a short story. This is perfect.
My short stories class, she was like, here, write a paper about being a babysitter.
Anytime that you sit down with a bunch of friends, and like we've done it here multiple times tonight, and we start off just like explaining, oh, that's like this happened to me one time, where this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. That's a short story. And so we kind of idolize and romanticize the written word to a certain degree, where we put it on a pedestal higher than it needs to be, and we make it more daunting and harder on ourselves by trying to make things perfect. And it's never going to be. Nothing ever will be.
And I was reading on one of the many emails I get from different writers groups and try to go shut off that inner editor, lock him in the closet.
Yep.
Don't worry about editing. You do that later.
Yep.
Just get something down on paper. And then when you're done with it, then you go back and edit. My thing is I can't personally edit my own stuff because it's like, it's supposed to say the cat runs up the tree. It's gonna say the cat runs up the tree even though I wrote the word dog.
Yeah.
Because that's
Because you know
what
what you
it
meant.
says in my brain that that's supposed to say. So that's why I send it off to my Aunt Dawn. Here you go, fix that. How many times can you respell the word the? As many times as I want.
All right.
She
So,
counted, she goes, I stopped at 7 different ways you counted thought. And I'm like, wow, how many more are there? She goes, I stopped counting.
and so I will have the link sent to everyone tonight. We'll have no writing prompts next month when we get together. And,
What are the other writing prompts?
let's see.
Because now I'm curious.
They're like potatoes.
Let's see.
I wouldn't put it past there being an angry potato in there.
Potato.
Oh, this one would have been fun. Something believed to be myth, but is actually very real.
Ah,
Potato eating.
Let's see.
blood for the spud.
A dinner party with phoenixes
Yay!
and cicadas.
Interesting.
They just thought they were there for a dinner party, they just ended up eating dinner.
They're the herbs.
All right.
Hi, dinner, what do you mean dinner? I mean, hi, friends. Fish, my friends out
He tells us that it's live streaming at the end. I'm glad he waited and told us at the end.
Well, that's kind of why I waited, because even though everybody knows that they're on camera, because we have so many of them,
I
I
mean,
figured
you're
if
not
I
getting ready where
announced the
you go
live
anymore.
stream before, it would cause social anxiety,
Oh,
Yeah, probably too.
performance anxiety.
So
So,
we've been sitting under the table.
so I figured we'd go ahead and get it all out of the way. That way, at the end of it, it's like, oh, wait, what? Okay, well, it's done.
Your drink got stolen. I told him,
Yeah.
like, yeah, it took too long, his stuff gets stolen.
Milk has been spilled, so. Good enough now.
What do you live stream this to? Okay.
Sweet.
I was surprised that was the best.